Very good morning to all of you, ladies and gentlemen present here in this city of trend and tradition. At the very outset, I would like to thank the organizers, Dr. Gautam Allahabadia and Mrs. Goral Gandhi, for taking this pain to amalgamate such a wonderful fraternity of IVF specialists. So friends, we have discussed various strategies to deal with ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome. And here we will discuss specially about dopamine agonists, and we'll see whether they can prevent or reduce the severity of ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome in women undergoing ART. We all know that controlled ovarian stimulation is an integral part of IVF as it achieves about 33% of the success rate, and we are in most of the cases, it is mild, but in 3 to 8% of cases, it may be severe or moderate to severe and even life-threatening one. And there are various interventions we have just discussed, and more recently, there was an interest in dopamine agonist, and it has been introduced as a secondary preventive method for OHSS for women at risk. We all know that OHSS is a complication which is caused by SCG, but it is also recognized that SCG itself has no effect on vascular system. Certain vasoactive substances are released by the ovaries in response to SCG, and in these vasoactive substances, VEGF is the most important mediator of SCG-dependent ovarian angiogenesis. VEGF mRNA increase after SCG administration in the granulosa cells of the ovaries, and there is VEGF receptor 2 activation, which induces new blood vessel formation and vascular hyperpermeability, and it was seen that this effect can be reduced by receptor blockade. In various studies, a series of receptor blockers like SU5416 were introduced to reverse the SCG action on vascular permeability. But these anti-angiogenic drugs, they could not be used clinically because of their side effects, mainly thromboembolism, and there was also a possibility that they may affect embryo implantation. Dopamine agonists were shown to have the similar effect of anti-angiogenic drugs, and at the same time, they do not appear to have undesirable side effects like thromboembolism, and they have been used for many years in medicine for hyperprolactinemia and even in Parkinsonism. So the rationale for using cabergoline is that it might counteract the increased production of VEGF by the follicles after SCG administration. In various animal models, it was seen that cabergoline partially inhibits the ovarian VEGFR2 through a decrease in its phosphorylation level. And also in another study, animal model, it was seen that the expression of gene for tyrosine hydroxylase enzyme, which is a rate-limiting enzyme in dopamine synthesis, was significantly lower in the rats with hyperstimulated ovaries. So it was found that high VEGF expression and activity in OHSS seems to be associated with reduced dopamine production. And this finding sparked interest in cabergoline as a potential intervention for preventing OHSS. And since then, there had been various clinical trials. Let us see what these clinical trials have to say. This is a systematic review and meta-analysis of 2010. Here, 4 randomized trials entailing 570 women were studied, and it was found that in the control group, the incidence was 12 to 50%, where in the agonist group, it was 3 to 10%. And this forest plot shows that there was a significant reduction in the incidence of OHSS. And regarding incidence of both severe and moderate OHSS, there was 50% lower incidence, and this forest plot shows that there was significant reduction. Regarding the onset of OHSS, there was a significant lower incidence in the early onset OHSS, whereas for the late onset OHSS, there was no effect. And the upper one forest plot is for early onset OHSS, and lower one is for late onset OHSS, and which shows there is no significant effect. Then came the Cochrane database of 2012. Here only 2 trials involving 230 women were studied, and they concluded that cabergoline appears to reduce the risk of OHSS in high-risk women. Then in 2013, again a systematic review and meta-analysis. Here 1,646 women were studied, and they concluded that the use of dopamine appears to be effective for prevention of OHSS. They are useful, but they are less effective for the treatment of OHSS, as they do not decrease the severity of OHSS. And lastly, in 2014, 8 RCTs were considered in a systematic review and meta-analysis, and they came to the conclusion that cabergoline reduces the risk of moderate to severe OHSS without affecting the clinical outcomes. So, looking at all the studies, in a nutshell, it was concluded that prophylactic treatment with the dopamine agonist cabergoline reduces the incidence but not the severity of OHSS, means it cannot be used as a treatment modality for OHSS. There is always a confusion, what about the dose of cabergoline, when the treatment should be initiated, what is the duration of the treatment, and there is no consensus on when to start and stop the treatment, because there was a clinical heterogeneity in the various studies. And in few studies, it was 0.5 milligram oral cabergoline for 3 weeks, beginning on the day after oocyte retrieval, or 0.5 milligram for 8 days, or 0.5 milligram on 2 successive days, repeated 1 week later from the day of SCG injection, or 0.25 milligram daily for 8 days, or even 1 milligram every 48 hours. So this was the heterogeneity in the dosage. There is always a concern whether this cabergoline can affect the endometrial angiogenesis and its impact on implantation and miscarriage rate. In various studies, it was found that there was no difference in clinical pregnancy rates and miscarriage rates were in the groups, and 2 of the RCTs followed the women up to the end of pregnancy and found no difference in the live birth rate between the both groups. And there's no increased rate of congenital malformation was found, and implantation rate was comparable between the study group and control group. And this latest meta-analysis and RCT, it found that cabergoline probably does not have a clinically relevant impact on clinical pregnancy rates or number of retrieved oocytes. However, we are still uncertain on various outcomes like live birth rates, miscarriage, and congenital abnormality. Recently, there was a concern about the potential risk of new onset of cardiac valvulopathy with the use of dopamine agonist in patients with Parkinson's disease, where they require high dosage for long duration. However, in most of the studies, the dopamine agonist used in prolactinoma, where dopamine agonist dosage are 10-fold lower than that employed in Parkinson's, there was no such abnormality observed. And for OHSS, much lower dosage are used over a shorter period of time, hence the risk of cardiac valvulopathy is likely to be negligible. At our clinic in Varanasi, we started to use cabergoline at January 2012 as a prophylaxis for OHSS, and the criteria for use: number of follicles 15 or more, and E2 level on the day of SCG more than 3000. And in the dose of 0.5 milligram once daily for 8 days, started on the day of HCG. And in 36 patients, we had mild OHSS except for 2 moderate and 1 severe one. So in conclusion, we can say that the exact etiology and pathogenesis of OHSS is still unclear, and therefore any preventive treatment remains non-specific. Dopamine agonist as a secondary preventive method leads to a significantly lower OHSS incidence in high-risk patients, especially for early onset OHSS, without compromising pregnancy outcomes. It is less effective as a treatment of OHSS as it does not reduce the severity of OHSS. And of course, further studies are required to establish the dose and protocol for OHSS prevention during dopamine agonist, using dopamine agonist. Thank you very much. for your patient listening.